One day, it was actually March 2022, I lost my husband to suicide. Why is dentistry at the top for suicide rates? Your nervous system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's learning. We have been programmed that productivity, the go, 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 the grinding for success, we have been programmed that that's the ultimate way. It was a guided meditation with breathwork for 10 minutes. My physiology changed in an instant. I felt peace. It starts by seeing our own truths and being honest with ourselves. And it's gonna be okay. You're not alone, and people are gonna support you. And that's the legacy, and it takes courage.
Welcome to the Trailblazers, the space where high-achieving women finally exhale and feel deeply understood.
We are Brittany Anderson and Disha Solanki, two leaders who have built, scaled, exited, and supported multi-8 and 9-figure companies,
while carrying far more than most people ever see.
Here we go where most conversations stop.
The burnout, the pressure, the ambition, the identity shifts, the invisible load, and the moments you almost quit.
This is where the real story begins.
Trailblazers.
Think about the last time you sat in a dentist chair. The smell, the sounds, the moment the chair tilts back. For most of us, something shifts. Our breathing changes, our body braces, and we haven't even opened our mouths yet. We talk a lot about healthcare being stressful for patients, but we rarely talk about what it does to the people on the other side of the chair. The ones who show up every single day, holding other people's fear, pain, and anxiety in their hands. Today's guest has spent her career asking a question most of the dental world hasn't wanted to look at. What happens to us when we spend a lifetime absorbing other people's stress? Melissa Sue Methven is a registered dental hygienist, breathwork facilitator, author, and speaker. She's the founder of Calm Chair Systems and the author of 2 books, including The Truth Behind the Smiles. Her work sits at the intersection of nervous system science, burnout, and what it actually means to be well, not just functional, in a demanding clinical setting. This conversation is for anyone who has ever pushed through when they had nothing left to give. Melissa, welcome to the show. I'm really excited for this conversation today, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit about, the moment when you realized that there was something not right in your profession and what you were seeing that's helped you get to where you are today.
Yes. Well, thank you. First of all, I'm greatly honored to be, with you on your podcast and to share my message. I've been a dental hygienist for 17 years, and I was married to a dentist. And we own a very successful dental practice in Wasilla, Alaska. I had 11 operatories, oral surgery room, pediatrics. So I think from the very beginning, I had a front row seat as to what dentistry truly was. And it's the constant pressures and responsibility. And it really changed the way I saw the dental profession, just seeing the behind the scenes, seeing that my husband, he would get emergency calls in the evenings. We go on vacations, there's constantly calls. It was just never a time to pause. It was a constant amount of responsibility, and that weight over time just added up. It really did. And I saw how that progression of, especially, him as a new graduate, because we were quite young, and he was becoming an associate, and he was very driven and excited to start his career. He worked 6 days a week because, you have the weight of the student loans. And once we decided to open up our own practice, then you have the weight of those loans on top of your student loans. And he was young and decided to work 6 days a week. And we actually lived downstairs of our dental practice to start off, just as those are the beginning stages and of owning a dental practice. So I really saw everything that happens for the dentist. And what I saw is that over time, that weight really affected him as far as his mental health and his physical health as well, being hunched over and seeing so many patients back to back, having 3 columns of hygiene, and that weight, once he showed up back home, there was no more energy left. For me, once we had children, it was the children. And over time, that weight really got heavier and heavier. And unfortunately, one day, it was actually March 2022, I lost my husband to suicide. And that was a ripple effect, shock in our families, in our community, in the dental profession, because we were very much involved with the other dentists. We were part of a big dental community, going to, conferences often. And something interesting happened after that is that so many dentists started reaching out to me and sharing their own struggles, sharing, highlighting the heaviness that no one really talks about. And in fact, it was Dr. Patrick Kelly. I had never met him. It was just all through connections, social media. And he encouraged me to write in my first book, The Truth Behind the Smiles, the whole chapter about dentistry.
Yeah.
And then I had dentists sharing their loss of other colleagues. And then I had dentists sharing their close calls themselves. And that's when I started to really start asking myself, why? Why is dentistry at the top for suicide rates? Top healthcare profession? Whereas from the outside, even when I wrote that chapter in my book, I had patients, just people that are not in the dental field going, I had no clue the struggles dentists go through. And so it just kind of enlightened the way we look about dentistry and dentists. And I started asking more and more questions and interviewing other dentists and just reflecting back truly just to my own story and what I observed with my husband. And I realized a lot of it had to do with the nervous system in a dental practice and how we're not aware that our environment is affecting us on a daily basis and it's not sustainable. That go, go, go. I mean, how many times I'm at work and there's no time for lunch?
Yeah.
It's just really fast paced.
Yeah.
And that is your body in a fight and flight constantly. And when you are in that state, there's no room to heal and inflammation. I kept on looking back the progression. It was a slow progression for my husband, and it was hard for me to really understand the big picture, willingness to slow down, because I think, he loved being a dentist. He loved helping others. And so he had an attachment to being there and providing for his patient. I don't know how many times he was so generous and just did a lot of free dentistry. He truly loved being a dentist, but it was just the way of taking care of everybody else. And I think he forgot to take care of himself. He forgot to take time for him and his own health. And that I saw after a while, all that pain that he was feeling from not ever taking care of the nervous system, his health, that back pain became so excruciating. But when you have a dental practice to stay afloat, you've got to find ways to keep going. And unfortunately, that's when opioids got introduced, pain medication.
Yeah.
And I'm not one way or another. I'm definitely more about blending science and mind body. Yeah. But when it becomes a place where it's just numbing the pain so you can keep working and never getting to the root cause of the pain, then that's where it just progresses, where you kind of lose control of these pain medications. And there was just so much mentally that started happening. It just seemed it spiraled. It's the less he took care of himself. There's, many dentists deal with litigations
That's
And
right.
that's a big, heavy weight. And that's something he went through. And I think he just kind of got beaten down over time, but never decided on slowing down. And that truly impacted his mental health and just even our relationships with me, with the wife, and the kids. And it was
Mhm.
really hard to see. And as a wife, too, we lived in a small community. It was hard for me to almost shine the truth as well, because he's got a
Yeah.
big patient base. It's like, well, who am I going to talk about this and not
Mm.
diminish his qualifications? Right. And so you become, okay, I'm going to just keep it to myself. We'll be able to take care of it ourselves. I'll talk to my husband about reaching out, getting help, slowing down, downsizing, selling our home, lots of options I
Yeah.
had put out there. But oftentimes we hold on to our identity, right? My
And
husband,
many times, if you're a professional, it's
yes.
wrapped up in what you do for a day job.
Absolutely. And as they should,
Yeah.
dentists have studied for countless years, in the constant pressures in dental school and the feeling that everything had to be perfect. Of course, they
Mhm.
have every reason to feel proud of their achievements.
Mm.
They're very intelligent, capable, but they're silently suffering. And that's where I want to bring light to this. And I know it's a hard topic. And I know sometimes people are scared for me to even say the word suicide
Yep.
and the high rates in dentistry. But the more we shove it aside, the
Mhm.
more it's happening. I still get text messages, phone calls, almost in a monthly basis that we have lost another colleague. And then they're wondering how I may help the wife and the children. I have seen the pain that I witnessed my children go through. They were only 6 and 8. I'm the one who found my husband. I'm the one I thought I could save him by giving him CPR, sitting by his side at the hospital for 3 days. I have seen the darkest of times, and I don't want that for any other family. So for me, I don't want you to wait till it's that last straw. Because you know what? How often I'd ask my husband, do you have suicidal thoughts? I'm worried about you. It
Mhm.
was always, no, I'm okay.
And you know what, Melissa? I would just want to take a moment to say thank you for sharing. You've even brought a tear to my eye, if I'm totally honest about that. You've been through a really tough time, and it's extremely vulnerable and brave for you to come out in a profession, I would say, that doesn't want to talk about this.
Mhm.
And they also don't actually actively want to maybe find solutions to. And it's almost about saying they're right here, come get the solution. Thank you for sharing that. I want to just take a moment to go back and ask you, now that you look back in retrospect to, you asked your husband, does he have any suicidal thoughts? You put so many options in front of him. Was there any real signs that you could see now that you know now because you're much more informed? Because you said about his mental and physical state. And I'm assuming you've done a lot of real digging deep into this and thinking, why did this happen? Because he's not here anymore to provide you the answers. And the no element of that, I can only assume, is because they become so used to carrying so much load that actually they feel like that they're going to be fine until one moment in time, and then they do something which is then irreversible.
Yes, that's a great question. And I did reflect back. And I have to say, after my husband passed, I did get, psychologists, counseling. I wanted to dig deep and do all the work because I knew my children couldn't lose another parent. So
Yeah.
as I did reflect back, what I learned, yes, early on, there were signs as far as the pain to push through. Why is the pain there? We need to make some shifts. The
Mhm.
chronic inflammation, and on the weekends, why do I need to drink so heavily? You know?
Mhm.
And even when I would go to dental conferences, you see that.
Yeah.
you see the heavy numbing. And that's the truth. So yes, I saw that. Those were the early signs, is that by the time, whew, okay, I'm done working, I've got to numb so much right now because my nervous system has been go, 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 go. And it's in fight and flight the whole entire week. And now I needed to quiet down. And we were never taught how to do that. And alcohol is a depressant. And oftentimes we seek it because it will help our nervous system to calm down. And so those were the early signs. Yes, that heavy drinking on the weekend to just decompress. And I believe same as the pain medication, just to keep going. I would also, the early signs of being so depleted every evening that when I'm cooking dinner for my family and my children, Dad is not joining us for dinner. He is now having a phone in front of him and numbing out. And I'm not saying this to put anyone at fault and say, oh, that's bad.
Yep.
I don't think people are realizing that's their nervous system. That's how our body works. That's physiology. They can't help it. That's all physiology. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's learning. You're in a dental office and you have someone in the chair and there so much fear and you're in close proximity. What happens? Your nervous system wants to mirror theirs. And over time, the dentist just mirrors each patient at a time. And they don't realize that. That's happening physiology. And that is all part of the nervous system. It's called mirror neuron. For children, they co-regulate. So it's a mirror neuron where your nervous system is trained to do that until it could learn to recognize, to release that and to feel calm. And that's just with a few breaths. So I've kind of veered off a little bit to your question, but to get back on what you asked me of the signs that I noticed with my husband, that's what I noticed. I see the world in nervous system lens. So he had trained his body to feel safety in the fight and flight. And then when he wanted to decompress, the only tools he had learned that worked was alcohol or the numbing of the opioids. So those were the early introduction of the highs and lows. The sleeping, he would, over the weekend after maybe having a drinking night, he would sleep for maybe till 4 p.m. And then all of a sudden he would rise in the evening and have a hard time falling asleep and the constant snacking. So those are the imbalances that happen with the nervous system and the dopamine and the serotonin. So now I can definitely see how that impacted him because he was one of the smartest men that I ever knew. But when I saw over time, it didn't make sense the way he was thinking and doing things. And so I think over time, it really affected his nervous system. Actually, at one point, he said, I have nerve damage.
Yeah.
And he was taking Cymbalta, and he was very vocal to sharing what he was taking to help others. And he said, I'm taking Cymbalta because I have nerve damage. So right there, his nervous system was overriding all the time to survive. But we were never taught those tools. And I wish now, I can't go back and I don't say that, but the tools that I have learned now, I wish I had known before, just the simplicity of breath work, going out in nature and sound. And what's affecting us in the dental practice, one thing that I'm very adamant now that affected his brain health, where at the end, I couldn't tell if he had bipolar or he was very forgetful and the panic and paranoia. But once I had a few dentists on, like Dr. Michelle Jorgensen, and she talked about her mercury poisoning, and then it's like a light bulb click. My husband in school worked with his fingers with amalgams. And he was known in Wasilla for the cosmetic dentist, removing all the silver fillings. And I thought, oh my goodness, the toxic load of the mercury vapors on top of his nervous system. It's all about toxic load. That had to have an impact. And the numbing, the nerve damage that he kept talking about, that is all high doses of toxins, toxicity in the body. And so that's why I'm very vocal for dentists to understand their environment from the sonic sounds, the drills, that's affecting, dysregulating their nervous system. To a patient that has so much fear, and you move on to the next patient that has a lot of anxiety. And if you don't do anything to recalibrate your nervous system, you carry that. You carry that. And a nervous system that is constantly in fight and flight, the blood vessels are constricted, the oxygen flow is decreased. You also have, so the oxygen can't go to the tissues. Healing cannot happen in that state.
Yeah.
And that's where inflammation grows, and even for the patient. So that's why I feel that bring awareness of the nervous system can allow for dentists to human sustainability in the career. I do truly feel it needs to be in the forefront because, and it's interesting because, like you said, not everyone's willing for me to just speak about this topic at a lot, but I feel very honored that I'll be speaking at the Texas Dental Association here in a couple weeks. And it's interesting because it's new, because it's not something I feel that's been really mentioned, the clinical. And I was like, well, it's very clinical, it's very science-based. But they're saying, well, the Texas Association doesn't regard it as a CE. And I was like, okay, well, not yet, but not yet. But this is all very much science. I'm not talking about someone that is too sensitive or an empath or too emotional. No, I'm talking about your nervous system and how it is doing exactly what's supposed to and what's affecting it, and very much our environment on a daily basis affect it.
And I would say probably a lot of dental practitioners have never thought about their nervous system before, right? So for those listeners who have not heard of that language before, how would you explain the nervous system piece to someone where this is new news to them?
Yes. Well, I explain it as your nervous system, it detects what is in front of you. It makes you calm. So when your nervous system is in the parasympathetic, which is the rest and repair, where you feel calm, like for example, think of a time where you feel so much at peace. Is it when you are by the beach and you're listening to the ocean wave? Is it when you've hiked a mountain? Or is it when you're peaceful in your bed and reading a book? When you feel that peace, that is called the parasympathetic. That is that calm. That is when you can rest and repair. On the other hand, when you're feeling just overwhelmed and go, and you're filling up your whole schedule for the week and you have no moment to pause. Your heart is racing. You need maybe 3-4 coffees to get through the day.
Yep.
That is the fight and flight. You are training your body, which I feel we have been programmed that productivity, the go, the grinding for success, we have been programmed. That's the ultimate way. But how many of us have burned and crashed trying to do that? And our health usually is the one that pays the price. Because I know for me, over time of that grinding and suppressing of the emotions, over time it affected my hormones. Yeah. And I was constantly fatigued. It hits your gut. Any one of you might be dealing with some gut issues with acid reflux. That is your nervous system that is constantly in that fight and flight. And what's happening, it is constantly looking for safety. So maybe at some point in your childhood, that was survival mode. Oftentimes, our nervous system is programmed from early years. They say 0 to 7 years old, even in vitro. They say your nervous system will mimic your mom and dad's in your belly. You'll feel it. And when you come out, same thing. I think And that generates their nervous system, and they need to collaborate. That's why they tell babies, put them skin to skin on you.
Yeah.
But if the parent is not calm and regulated, well, they're just taking on their nervous system. And so the nervous system is all, think of just popped in my head. I think of a Christmas tree, right? You wrap it up with lights all around. And so we are wrapped all around us with this nervous system. But if one light bulb goes off,
Yeah.
and then so it blocks the circuit. So same with our nervous system. If there's a blockage through our nervous system where energy can't flow,
Yeah.
then it blocks. It blocks us, and we can start having some more inflammation in that area where if we feel stuck, depression. It needs to have a constant flow. And a lot of ways to do that is through breath. So taking some simple breath, you have your vagus nerve just right in the back of your skull here, your back of your neck.
Yeah.
And so through a few simple breath, even in through the nose, and a long, slow exhale through the nose, just those simple breaths will create safety for your nervous system and change the physiology where you can feel calm and bring back some of that peace. So then, and how I realize that is I know that in the state of fight and flight, the sympathetic, you will eventually grow disease. For me, when I was in constant fight and flight, my hormones were all just all out of whack. I couldn't sleep well. I was constantly fatigued. I was losing my hair. I had gut issues, and even mood-wise, just these fluctuations. So in that state, after my husband passed, I knew I couldn't sustain that, even though when he passed, my heart was palpating so fast that I thought I was having a heart attack. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. But what I learned in my first ever therapy session, he guided me through a breathwork session. It was a guided meditation with breathwork for 10 minutes. When I was in that state, this is a day after my husband passed, my physiology changed in an instant. I felt peace. I felt calm just in those instants. And I knew then that I needed to continue and learn everything to do with breath work because I was in awe of how fast, my body reverted right back. It had just reverted right back to that fight and flight because there was still so much going on. But I continued incorporating breath work and pausing and stillness. And I now see the world in that nervous system lens, even for my children. I see it when I'm regulated, when I'm calm, and they're coming at me and they want to just attack me because kids will do that, they'll test you. And I used to be like, oh, I can't handle it. And, almost want to hide in a closet, or I would lash back, because you're like that electricity and you want to scream back, and that doesn't work. So now when I'm calm and that is happening, I can, with a calm voice, have my boundaries, but calmly speak to them and with love and boundaries. And then it just dissipated. It actually happened yesterday. I was having a lovely picnic with my family and my daughter was just off. She was just off. And now I was like, well, okay, I'm not gonna come right in and into her energy, into her nervous system. So I stayed calm. And because we weren't reactive, she came back to coherence with us. And she's apologized after for her behavior. But so there's so many benefits to learning the tools to stay calm for when challenges arise.
You have been through, it sounds to me like you felt a lot of isolation even before your husband passed because you didn't feel like you had a community or anyone that would understand where you were coming from. In turn, it also sounds like your husband felt isolated in a different way because he felt like he had to put on a different type of front everywhere he walked, whether it be in his home, whether it was him practicing in surgery. And even after he passed, you've been through a great deal, Melissa. How long did it take for you to carry that load? Because it is heavy and you were left with two really young children. before you started talking about it in a profession where suicide rates are just so high?
Actually, that calling to use my voice was almost instant because many people ask me, what are you going to say how your husband died? And I said, died by suicide. That was very strong from the very beginning. I wrote it in the obituary. I would speak out and I say, no, you say he died by suicide. I'm not going to hide it. To talk about it, it took me a little while because once I lived in Wasilla, but I felt called to move and I moved to Arizona. And once I arrived in Arizona, I needed space. So I actually shut down from social media and getting back to people. Like it was great. We had a big community helping us, but I kept on saying, I need space. And I did work with a psychologist, a therapist that was fantastic, which incorporated parts work. And that's going back to the parts of you, the younger self, and processing the grief. And then I found breath work. Actually, I found a place here that does breath work. And I started going to reconnect mind body where I would do cold plunging, red light, sauna, and then once a week they'd host breath work. That is where I processed so many of these suppressed emotions that I had kept in, trying to not using my voice because I felt like, well, that wasn't safe and I wasn't sure who to tell. And, I told family, I told a few friends, but nobody, my husband, that's why it's the truth behind the smiles. It's actually, if you see our cover of the book, this is what we would hand out for our dental practice. We look picture perfect, smiles. And that's how he always showed up. So even when I would address these things, people couldn't, well, he seems fine. He seems okay. And for my husband to circle back and his identity, yes, his identity as a successful dentist, as a wonderful father and husband and friend. I truly feel he felt by saying, yes, I need to go to possibly rehab or take some time to myself to do some work, see somebody. That came with so much shame. He couldn't let go of that identity. And that was so hard because he would create probably these stories of people won't like me anymore, or that shame and that guilt, whereas people would have loved him and support him. And it would probably allow others say they're in the same story.
Yeah.
They're going through the same thing because that happened after he passed. I had many of his friends that were dentists share the similar struggles. And so I always say now to people that it starts by seeing our own truths and being honest with ourselves. And it's going to be okay. You're not alone and people are going to support you. And that's the legacy. And it takes courage. It really does. It takes a lot of courage. And even for me, I had to really put a mirror in my face like, okay, yeah, I didn't use my voice as much as I probably should have. That was really hard to admit, but I have to go there. And writing my book was a great way to release all the truth.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one-sided. It's me too, because it takes two people.
Yeah.
But I also learned to forgive. Forgive is one of the biggest tools. Forgive him and forgive myself. And I had to start living in the now for my children. What can I do now? And what I did now was write my book. And after that, that's when it spiraled to be on podcasts and to talk about it and really get uncomfortable. Actually, when I wrote my book, my publisher was like, okay, every night on social media, you'll post. And I'm like, oh, really don't want to do this. And it was really uncomfortable. You ask any of my family members, I'm from Quebec City, very shy, quiet little girl. And now they're seeing what I'm doing and like, wow, but it took courage. And I think it passion. I said, I can't hide the story anymore. And if I can carry on Scott's legacy with his story and save somebody's life, or at least plant that seed of awareness that their environment is affecting them in the tools of just simple breath. And when I teaching breath for the dental community, it's not adding another cost because we all know everything costs a lot in the dental practice. And it's not another more time because I know you're limited on time too. But
Mhm.
what do? We all wash our hands in between patients. So while you're washing your hands, take some conscious breath, just slow inhale and a slow, long exhale. Just a few of those while you're washing your hands, or you're in between patients, or if the patient is sitting in your chair and you could tell they're anxious, just pause and say, let's start with a few breaths. And you'll change their physiology in less than a minute. And this is going to be imperative for their healing and yours.
And I absolutely agree with you from a patient perspective as well, because, you never stop to really think what's happening apart from, you're lying on a chair and all the noises you hear. You don't stop to think how a provider may feel. Apart from writing your brilliant book, The Truth Behind the Smiles, you are also founder of Calm Chair Systems. I would love for you to tell us more about that and walk me through what that actually is.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that came about as I'm practicing my talks and I'm really trying. I know the logical mind of the dentist, and I'm trying to paint a picture that this is physiology, this is science, and this is not woo-woo. And as I was, practicing my talks, I said, I will need to provide the tools after a talk. Well, okay, they've learned this, they're ready to integrate some of this work. So I came about creating the Calm Chair system, it is breath work. So there are 2 3 minutes breath work audios, and it's breath work with visualization. And also I specifically use frequency music. So music as well can recalibrate your nervous system. So different tones, for
How
example, even
interesting.
singing birds, their tones can help you recalibrate your nervous system that is dysregulated. That's why I always say time in nature is the best. But oftentimes we live, in cities, and we can't always just jump out in nature. So my audio will have frequency music, breath work, and visualization so that it could calm your nervous system before you start your day. For example, most dental offices now have a meeting in the beginning of the day with their staff. Well, there's one that you can do with your team, your staff, just for a minute or two. So then you become in coherence. So when I say coherence, heart coherence, it's you want the nervous system of your team to be in coherence, to be calm, to be loving, and able to conquer the day,
Yeah,
challenges of the day,
yeah.
right? So then you're less reactive, you're prepared for that angry patient, you're prepared for, things always happen. So that I have one for that. I have one for the dentist that he can do in between patients where he had maybe a really hard procedure or a hard patient and he just needs to let that go. Then there's one for the end of the day as well to just kind of release everything. So you are setting yourself up to show up for your loved ones at home, present and calm and ready to be part of the why you're doing this. Oftentimes your why
Yeah,
is to provide for your family.
absolutely. And then you show up at the worst version of yourself when you finally get to them, right? Despite
Yes.
having spent the last maybe 8, 10, 12 hours trying to figure out how they're your why at the end of the day. And you come to your why and you're just not all there, right?
Yes, because how many times my husband was like, "Oh, well, I provide for, because I was like, oh, why am I, complaining? I have a beautiful home, house, we
Mhm.
travel, beautiful kids." But I kept on saying, "But I want you. I need
Yes.
you present.
Yeah.
I'd rather downsize everything to have you happy and healthy." Right?
Mhm.
Because without your health, you
Yeah,
can't enjoy your wealth. There's nothing wrong with the
absolutely.
abundance, but you got to be healthy enough to enjoy it with your family. And that's what is finding that balance.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to bring back a balance. And then I have an audio as well for the patient. So most patients nowadays will either have their AirPods or maybe the dental office has headphones. And so you would scan a QR code and the patient in the waiting room could turn on an audio. And this will set their nervous system while they're waiting for their appointment. Because the minute they walk into the dental practice, they hear the sounds, they hear the smells, and definitely once they sit down in the chair, their
Yeah.
heart rate goes up. I know because I take their blood pressure. I still practice. A couple days a week at a dental practice, and I take their blood pressure and how often they're elevated. And let's take it one more time. Let's take a few breaths and let's take it again. The minute they sit in that chair. And so that's how I came to the calm chair system, is because I do see it on a daily basis. The minute the patient sits in the chair, they spiral into that anxiety. And that anxiety has a ripple effect to the provider or the dental hygienist. You're such close proximity. So simple tools are even dental practices using heavy blankets to calm the nervous system and breath, and realizing changing that environment for your patients, they will heal better. They also will be more compliant, because if you have a patient that is overwhelmed and then you tell them all the things they need to done, how often are they booking that next appointment?
And sometimes they're not just overwhelmed, they're overwhelmed and overstimulated too. And Melissa, it sounds like you sell like a zen, if I was honest. You walk into a dental practice, and I'm sure most dental practices are quite busy. The reception is bustling, lots of people chattering, and then you go in and then there's more chatter going on. And it sounds like everybody is going to be calibrated. Is that the word you used?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And calibrated, or like coherence.
Yeah,
But yes,
that's
it's a
it.
calibration of the whole office.
Yeah. And so it sounds like a wonderful place to walk into. But I bet a lot of providers are asking the question, how long does this take? How much time out of my day do I need to spend doing this? Being, as you know, Melissa, the busy people that run from one patient to the next, maybe don't have a toilet break, a restroom break, or a drink break, or time to eat food. What kind of time does this take for them? If they're
So for them,
wondering,
I'm only
how are they
asking
considering?
for 2 to 5 minutes. That's all. Start small. Start with 2 minutes a day and notice that shift. And that 2 minutes could be just when you're washing your hands. That 2 minutes could be you arrive at the dental practice, take that 2 minutes. Don't dive right into work.
Yeah.
I'm very mindful about that, even myself as a mother. When
Mm.
I wake up, I allot myself more time in the morning to set my nervous system, to do the breath work, to do my meditation, to do my journaling. Then I'm more prepared for my children's demands. And I've seen a huge difference. So that's what I'm asking for doctors. See it as the small win. Start with 2 minutes. And maybe first thing when you step into your dental practice, sit at your desk, or even better, do it with your staff. Just start incorporating that 2 minutes. And then if you're noticing, okay, I need it more, I'm just asking them to start being aware of their nervous system. Because I think we haven't been programmed to see ourselves, to notice it. Notice which patient or which time during the day you are starting to become a little bit overwhelmed, and how it's affecting you, and how it's affecting you cognitively, decision wise, sleep wise at night. Are you having a hard time sleeping? Are you waking up in the middle of the night? These are all signs that we're go, go, go. We're in the fight and flight. The cortisol is spiked always.
And they're important signs that providers should be aware of and then actively take steps. Because, Melissa, what you've said is very simple. Start with 2 minutes a day, and they all wash their hands between patients, God knows how many times a day, or even at the beginning of the day. I think that's a great way to start.
Yes.
As we come to the end of today's conversation, I have one question. If you could change one thing about how dentists are trained as humans, what would it be?
Wow, that's a good question. So, how they are trained, I would say trained as much as, because they are givers, right? They are
Yeah.
healers, they are passionate, but as much as they give back to everybody else, start giving back just as much to themselves. So it has to come back to them. give themselves that self-care just as much as they give to everybody else. So I feel that that's very important as a healer, as a practitioner. That's why you got into it, And for me, the mouth, I feel, is one of the most important place to look at for overall health. So I want more dentists to love their job and to have the sustainability, because it's crucial for vitality for people. But it all needs to start with them, I feel, with the provider. Take that time for you. Don't grind through. I feel, companies like you, like Align, that can help relieve the weight. But here's what happens with, I think, a lot of dentists. Control, letting go and control is very, very hard.
And they think they can do it all. That would be the
Yes,
thing, right? They're
yes.
capable. They're all of these things. It doesn't mean that they should do it, though.
No, because that will impact them. So finding safety into releasing that control, trusting people that can take on some of that weight, because you don't have to grind for success, and your health doesn't have to pay for your success as well, because then you won't be able to enjoy it. So finding that balance. And a lot of times it's surrendering, is letting go of control, and letting go of perfectionism, which is also something really big in dentistry.
Melissa, for any of our listeners who would like to connect with you or learn more about your work, please share where they should go.
Yes. Well, I have a website, melissamethven.com. Also, I have a podcast called Not Alone. So it's Not Alone podcast.life. And this is very much, I share stories and truth of hope and resilience. I have had many dentists on there as well, sharing their own struggles and how they got out and what they're doing to be successful. And I also on social media at Melissa_gratitude. So those are all the wonderful ways. I have my 2 books, actually, The Truth Behind the Smiles, which is over here. And I have my newest one, The Gut-God Connection. These 2 are on Amazon and Audible as well.
Thank you for sharing, Melissa. Your message is beautiful and important and needs to be heard. And go viral is a word I would use. All of your links will be in the show notes for anyone looking for you too. Thank you ever so much for today, Melissa. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, yes, it's been so grateful. And from the time I met you and your husband as well, I connected right away. So truly an honor.
If this episode supported you, share it with a woman you respect and want to lift up.
Join our free Trailblazers community, the space where high-achieving women finally feel met.
You'll find the link in the show notes.
Until next time, keep moving forward, keep listening to yourself.
And remember, you deserve support too.